Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. OP, I honestly don't understand how you could be so patient. I hope that woman realizes how dangerous it is for her child to have touched a stranger. Such crazy rudeness. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Go ahead, complain to the manager. I work retail. I have that face. No matter what store I'm in, I have people ask me if I know where something is. Many times, I actually do know where things are and am willing to help other retail employees out by showing the customer where they are or by helping them find an employee to help them. One night around 11 p.m., I went in to use the bathroom, and for some reason, the toilet got stopped up. When I say it got stopped up, I mean I had to turn the water off because the clog was so bad. This had happened once before, but that time the clog had resolved itself. This time it wasn't resolving. It was really late, but Walmart was open and wasn't too far, so I decided to go get a plunger and attempt to remove the clog. I didn't change clothes. I had on a ratty t-shirt and a pair of ratty cut-off sweatpants and a pair of flip-flops. I was a little wet, very hot, and very sweaty. I was on a mission to only buy that plunger, so I walked into Walmart and headed straight for the hardware section. I found the plungers, made my selection, and started to head back to the registers when I was stopped by an older woman and her grown son. She didn't just stop me, she chased me through the part of the hardware section and into the home goods. She kept screaming over and over again, excuse me, miss, oh miss, where are the luggage tags?" At first, I didn't even realize she was talking to me because I was just trying to get out of that store and back to my still overflowing toilet, but she had her son chase me down and grab my arm to get my attention. I immediately turned around and yanked my arm back and probably gave her the stink eye. I'm not sure. I told her I didn't know where the luggage tags were, but that the luggage itself was 3 aisles down and pointed in the direction of the luggage. I turned around and started to walk away. That's when she started to insult me. She called me a effing bee and told me I was useless. She followed me all the way up to the register yelling insults at me. Everyone was staring at me and her. I didn't know what to do. I just got in the extremely long line and stood there waiting my turn. At this point, she got really preachy and was yelling about how she needed to talk to a manager and the customer service manager would not do. It was quite the spectacle. Somehow they managed to get the manager up there. He stood there and listened to her spin some great tale of how rude I was to her and how could Walmart hire employees like me. Everyone was gawking, looking at me, looking at her, and looking at her son pick his nose. It was finally my turn in line, and the clerk eyed me suspiciously as I bought my plunger. She had a definite "what the F did you do to piss that bee off" look. I didn't really say much, but didn't really know what to say. It's pretty obvious what's going on when you go to Walmart at 11:30, dressed the way I was dressed, and buy a single item, a plunger. I grabbed my plunger and receipt, didn't even wait for a bag, and headed for the door as quickly as possible, but not before the manager stopped me. As the lady looked smugly on, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Do you work here?" I looked at him, looked at my plunger, looked down at my clothing, and said, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Yeah, I didn't think you worked here." You know what her problem is? I just stared for a beat and left. At this point, everyone in the front end had stopped and was staring at me as I left with my plunger. The crowd seemed uneasy, and the woman looked really angry that the manager was just going to let me leave. Just like that. I almost ran for it, but had the feeling if I did, like a pack of dogs going after a fleeing cat, everyone might have mobbed me. I never saw any of them there ever again, and my toilet, although was able to be plunged that night, was still stopped up tree branches and had to be roto-rootered out that week. And our second story. The worst customer I've ever had. So it was only my second day working at the store I'm currently employed at. It was a pretty busy day, and I was already overwhelmed enough by it being my first job. I was working the front of the store by myself, and I see 2 younger girls walking up to my register looking like they needed help. As I was walking to my register, I see an older woman walking up the side register. I politely told her that I could help her at the main register, and she looked at me and just said, "Oh, okay." so I figured she'd walk down there. After I explained to her that I had to ring her up at a different register, I helped the girls at my register who needed help. They were wondering the price of some items, so I had to go and check for them really quickly, which I thought was no big deal, since they were in line before the woman anyway. So I help the girls out, they leave, and I turn around and the woman is still at the other register, giving me a dirty look. Mind you, I only took about 3 minutes to help these girls out. She finally makes her way to my lane and had some not-so-friendly words for me. Me: "Hello, how are you?" Customer: how long were you going to let me stand there and look stupid?" Me: "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I told you I could help you down here. My mistake." Customer: "Well, that's just extremely rude of you. How could you do that?" Me: "Well, I'm very sorry, ma'am. It's only my second day here, and I told you I could help you at this register instead." Customer: "It's okay. Don't apologize. You're going to be here for the rest of your life anyways." And she proceeds to buy her precious $3 coffee creamer and walk out of the door, giving me the dirtiest look imaginable. And our next story. Want to cut in line? You're going to have a crappy day. This happened a while back. One day after getting off work in the afternoon, I decided to stop and get a bite to eat on the way home. There's a gas station that has a drive-thru where you pull around back and order on a touchscreen. Normally the drive-thru's very busy, but luckily no one's there, so I ordered my meal and went to pull around. No sooner had I started, a busted-up Buick cut in front of me and pulled up to the window. I honk my horn, which he responds by flipping me off, and I listen as he acts like a complete jackwagon. From what I understand, he wanted to get a pack of Marlboros and didn't want to wait in the line inside, so he just decided to use the drive-thru. Problem is, you can't get things like cigarettes and liquor through it, and even if you could, he just decided to cut in front of people. But seeing how he's driving a Buick with primer for a color and sporting a rat tail, he'd be the type not to care. He goes off on the employee, getting the manager involved, but she didn't want to cause an issue, so she decided to help the guy. She gets his Marlboros, which he proceeds to pay in a handful of change, and she asks him next time to get them inside and not to cut in front of the drive-thru. He replies, "I don't give a crap," and takes off. I pull up, and the manager profusely apologized and offered to give me my meal for free for waiting patiently. I went ahead and paid for it anyway because I know how stressful it can be dealing with idiots. I go to leave and pull out and notice behind me is the busted-up Buick turning in the same direction I was. Don't know what he'd been doing that whole time, because I thought by now he'd have been miles down the road, but when I noticed he was going to be behind me, I couldn't help but smile. There's a stretch of rural road with no passing because of how busy it is, and speed limit's 40. Well, I wanted to get home safely, so I decided to go 30. For the first few miles, the guy's going crazy. Every time I look in the rearview mirror, the guy is screaming, and all I could do is laugh and just make me more cautious. Stopping to let people out, slowing down when I see people walking in their yards, basically just using any excuse to go slower. Oh look, a school bus coming out. Sure, pull out. And you're going to drop off kids? Even better. During the first drop-off, I look back and the guy's hitting his dashboard. All I could do was laugh manically. Apparently, it got to the guy when on the third stop after the bus retracted their sign, I hear an engine roar and rat tail peels out behind me and on the other side and past me and the bus and just narrowly avoided hitting a car head on. Horns were blaring, and before I could react, I hear whoop, whoop. My eyes widen and I turn to a side road to see a sheriff's deputy pull out. Needless to say, I laughed like a hyena. And while this was going on, I had a call on my phone. I pulled over into a parking lot and talked to a friend of mine for about 30 minutes. About 20 minutes into our conversation, I noticed a tow truck going down the road, but didn't think anything about it. After my phone call, I continued my way home. A few miles down the road, I noticed the traffic slowing and saw lights flashing. I get closer and notice the Buick being pulled up on the back of the wrecker, and when traffic stops for a moment, I look over into the cruiser and see Rat Tail in the back in handcuffs. I couldn't help but smile, and as he turned to see me smiling, I waved bye to him and continued my way home. And our last story. Your Honor, make him join my HOA. A while back, my estranged great-uncle was known for his notorious ill temper. He had no children and a strained relationship with the rest of the family. Somehow, I turned out to be the only one capable of mending ties with him and having pleasant conversations and even be friends with him. In his old age, he exclusively interacted with me and one other old grouch, his friend from the Army. As for my own parents and my grandmother, his sister, they had their falling out with him and quarrels erupted every time they crossed paths. Looking back, it seems like he relished these confrontations, finding some sort of enjoyment or sport in them. Regrettably, a few years ago, he passed away, and to my utter surprise, I inherited his house. I was expecting he'd probably donate it to some local Tolkien enthusiast society just to vex my grandma or some crap like that. His Army friend, on the other hand, inherited his collection of vintage Swiss watches and a stuffed raccoon with a wheel mark on it. I think he ordered this stuffed animal to give to a friend after his funeral. So I made the decision to move into the house since it was roughly equidistant from my workplace, situated in another part of the city. Besides, it meant no more monthly rental payments. Upon my arrival with my belongings, I noticed a group of people in my yard, 4 of them to be exact. They turned out to be the complete council of our local homeowners association. But here's the twist. My new house wasn't and had never been part of this association. I'd like to see them make my grandpa join. However, was witnessing an incredibly frail, scrawny man attempting to wedge his head through a shattered window of my shed. It turns out they were there to kindly invite me to join the association and start paying membership dues. I told them that I had no interest in it, but the self-appointed council members persisted, insisting that I at least peruse the documents. Reluctantly, I took them to get them off my back. Within the documents, I discovered a truly ludicrous list of regulations. It included rules about the color of the grass, the shades of house paint, the fence heights, and even the requirement to have lace curtains so that no one could peer into your house. The next day, Karen, the head of the council, came to collect the documents. I refused to sign this nonsense, and she retorted that they had a video of me taking the documents from their car, which meant I'd already joined the association. I threatened to call the police, and Karen left. From the following day, I started receiving fines from the association for incorrect wall colors and an inappropriate fence height. Each one was worth $70 a day. I consulted with my attorney, who confirmed what I suspected. Joining the association without my consent was mere paperwork, and even if I had joined, these fines were contestable in our country, so I decided to disregard the fine notices. Over the course of 7 months, I accumulated fines amounting to roughly $14,000. I remember that specific day when I came home from work to see a crew dismantling my fence. They claimed the association had sent them. That was the last straw. The workers agreed to testify against Karen and the association if I didn't press charges. When Karen appeared in court, she had stacks of fine notices for my non-compliance with the association's rules. She vehemently argued that demolishing my fence was a lawful decision, and she insisted on defending herself in court. But even though, despite all her efforts, Karen failed to explain to the judge why she believed that my property had magically become a part of the association, the entire ordeal ended up costing the association around $70,000. However, what pained Karen more than the money was the sour look on her face every time she saw me after the court case. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.